Welcome to the 8 Billion Project, where we're on a mission to make an impact by discovering and sharing the purpose of every person on this planet. I'm your host, Lisa Florida. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 8 Billion Podcast. I am your host, Lisa Florida, and today we have a special treat in studio here at Culver City. I have Mr. James Whittaker. James is an international best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. He has interviewed more than 200 of the world's leading athletes, entrepreneurs, and business leaders to unlock their secrets to success. His work has been translated into 6 languages, and his 2018 book, Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy is a modern companion to the best-selling self-help book of all time. James's mission is to help people take ownership of their financial, physical, and mental health so they can win the day every day. Please welcome Mr. James Whittaker.
Thanks for having me on, Lisa. Great to see you.
It's great to see you too. I think the last time I saw you in person was probably about 2 months ago, right?
That's right. No matter how many times I hear it, it always makes me uncomfortable hearing my own bio. But then I hear the win the day part and I'm like, yes, here we are. Let's do it.
Right? No, I found that's very true for me too. When I guest on other podcasts, when I hear my bio, sometimes I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But we are 2 weeks into 2021. And it's been quite an interesting year. I just wanted to ask you, how has 2021 been for you?
Things are great. And I know there are a lot of people who are out there struggling. So I'm very grateful for the position that I'm in. But I've also spent probably more than 12 hours just on goal setting stuff for myself and for my family so far this year. So things are great. Every year around the New Year's Eve time, my wife and I sit down, we write out our goals. We've got a really comprehensive idea of how we do that. I've got a full success plan template where we write down all these different things that we want in all areas of our life. So I always start every year very, very confident, but there's been a lot of seeds that I've been planting for what feels like a lifetime now. And there's just been some amazing things happening and a lot of really great stuff scheduled for 2021. So I'm super pumped to be here and I really think this will be the best year yet.
Well, that's really amazing though. So you set, so at the beginning of the year, you basically set goals for a full year, or do you go back? Like, do you set a 5-10 year plan? How do you guys do it?
Yeah, so I start off with my mission, write down what is that mission, and then I write down my values, and then I think about what are those things that I actually want out of life. Now, they might be things like buy a wetsuit so I can go surfing without freezing my ass off, something as simple as that. Or it might be to help something like 200 podcasters by the end of the year with their business, like whatever it might be. I've got all these different things. Another one is swimming lessons for my daughter. So she's 20 months old, little things like that. So it covers everything. It covers the things that I want to do for my wife to make sure she has time off. It's a really eclectic mix, and those 1 year goals then become 90-day action items. So I backtrack it. So whatever the goal might be, I either have to move it back to figure out what does that look like in 90 days, or I push it forward to say, what does that look like in 1 year's time and 3 years' time, and what does the perfect destination of that look like? And what that does is it gives me a really clear idea of what work I need to do in the next year, because I do this very rigorous goal setting system once a year. And then I put those 90-day goals, I turn them into action items and then systemize that into my calendar. And it's super easy because every 90 days you get a calendar notification going off to say, start that process again. So 4 times a year, I do the 90-day cycle. And once a year, that's the annual goal setting calibration. And it's great because it's just everything is so clear now. Like I've had trademark applications for my business, like buying a dog, like all of these things are on this one
90-day schedule.
Yeah, there's so many things on there, but I have also found out that due to the pandemic, there's a huge waiting list to buy dogs because apparently everyone wants to buy a dog. So that's one of the things you don't think about for COVID, but it's people who don't take the time to write down exactly what they want out of life. They can't really blame themselves or they can't really blame anyone else if they're not achieving that. You need to take the time to write down exactly what it is that you want out of this one great life, because that fires up your subconscious. So you can then do everything that you need to do consciously and subconsciously to attract those things into your life.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, because I was just going to ask you, so do you review it at the end of the year? Apparently you do it every 90 days. And then you recalibrate, basically.
Yep. So my wife and I, we catch up once a month, so we see where are we at, and then every 90 days we go and check in on those different goals that we've got, and then we basically turn those 90-day goals for the next period into new 90-day action items to turn them into calendar notifications and restart that process. It's very, very systematic. It's very, very disciplined, and there are people out there who I know who might have very good incomes. Like they might have very good success in one or two areas of their life, but if they feel like they're not living with purpose or they're not living with passion or there's just something missing, it's because they don't have this foundation. This gives you the foundation of being clear on who you are and where you want to go. And once you've got those two things lined up, it makes just everything so much clearer.
It sure does. Wow, that's amazing. What I did want to ask you, okay, with this current state of, where we are in the world with the pandemic, and then let's take it in even down to everything that's kind of happening in the country. What have you done mentally to, on a daily basis to help you kind of get through all of this?
I switched the news off. So that's been, I never even was a big news watcher anyway. I did take a little bit of an interest in politics in 2020 because I just wanted to be a little bit informed just so I could have my own opinion rather than there's just so much noise around those different things. But a big one for me is just figuring out in times of great difficulty and turmoil like we were in 2020 and like we're still in at the moment, it's important to double down on self-care. Right. You need to go back to the basics. One of the things I did last year that has completely changed my life is have cold showers in the morning. I know that seems so bizarre, but waking up and facing that adversity, the last thing I want to do in winter is hop into a cold shower, but I do that. I straight into a cold shower for about 5 minutes. And for some reason, that mental win alone is a great way to start the day. But it's also the best thing that I've ever seen for sustained energy levels. Normally I would fade after lunchtime, but now I feel great the entire day and it's brilliant.
So take me through that. So you take a cold shower every morning for like 5 minutes. Do you do that like every day of the week?
Every day. So my daily routine at the moment is wake up, 5-minute cold shower. And after that, like I'm feeling pretty invigorated, feeling pretty good. Then I'll grab the 5-minute journal and then I'll write down 3 things that I'm grateful for and 3 things that would make today a win. And a big goal of mine for 2021, actually my 90-day goal is to get 100 meditations done by the end of March 2021. Because meditation, everyone I interview talks about the benefits of meditation, but I have never been consistent with it long enough to be able to feel those benefits. So I figure if I can do 100 meditations in a row, then that would allow me to feel those benefits and create that habit. But I also realized that it was so tough for me to have that consistency. So I bought what's called a 100 board off Amazon. It's literally 1, 2, 3, like numbers from 1 to 100. And every day once I've done my meditation, I just draw a big red cross through that number. And once you've got that momentum and you don't want to disrupt that trend. It's what Jerry Seinfeld used for his writing, and it's working to massive effect for me. I leave my 100 board on my keyboard, so I physically can't start work until I have to do my meditation, do up the red cross, and it's just so much better to have those little things for the day.
Well, yeah, no, that's interesting you say that because was going to be one of my questions. Because congratulations on the release of Andrew Carnegie's Mental Dynamite.
Thank you.
You released this around the same time Brandon released Road to Success.
Yeah.
Yes. And so what I wanted to ask you is on page 61, and this actually will go back to your meditation, it talks about set aside 1 hour out of every 24 hours to be still for that small, still voice that speaks within. And is that where you got that, where you committed to that 100-day?
It wasn't from that. It was when I interviewed a woman by the name of Emily Fletcher, who's the world's leader in meditation for high performance. She's worked with Navy SEALs and Academy Award winners and a whole bunch of professional athletes. And she also had a 10-year career on Broadway. And she was talking about you don't need to worry about blocking out your thoughts. You don't need to worry about those different things. And another thing that she does, which I really love, is she factors in a manifestation piece. So you start with mindfulness, some of those things to eliminate stress, but the ability to think about something that you've got coming up, whether it's an event, whether it's a podcast interview, whether it's a business meeting, whatever it might be, your brain doesn't know the difference between an imagined memory and a past memory. So you can manufacture this memory for the future that means that when it comes time to approach that event, you've already got the feelings and sensations as if you've already had victory for that.
Wow. That's amazing. No, and I was just going to mention that was because this was one of the things that I found interesting on in the book. And for me, it was life-changing for 2020 because one, just like you, I turned off the news because there was enough people you could hear it from, right? Like if you didn't need to turn on CNN or any of the news channels, you just hear it in everyday talk. And if you wanted to find it, you could just Google the information you needed.
Yeah, a big challenge for the world is that everyone wants to have these battles on social media with everyone just has their own opinions based on their own experiences. It's those experiences that are based on our beliefs and the consistent actions that we've applied and the people that we've been surrounded with in our lifetime. So everyone is entitled to their own opinions. But when we're so busy talking rather than listening, I think it's better to ask these questions. I just don't have surface level conversations with people. Like everything that I talk about is very, very deep. And it's at the point where I've almost attracted that into my life. Every conversation that I have with someone is to figure out is someone struggling with something? Let's work on achieving that. Like these are real things rather than someone trying to change someone else's mind on politics through a Facebook post. You might feel good with that vent, but think about the negative energy. You can just see it with these comment after comment after comment. So I think it's important just to really try and, first of all, be informed, but switch off all of these things. Your energy source is your most valuable asset.
Absolutely.
You need to protect that at all costs. And the biggest asset in my life, the thing that has attracted every opportunity that I have had to this point is relationships. That's always a massive focus for me, is making sure I am constantly surrounded by high-level people.
Right. No, that's amazing. Then, okay. And so what I wanted to also add to that was one, it was, you turned off the news. Two, another thing in common that we committed to is I went through deep meditation. So during that time that all that news and the chaos, I would take walks, even if it was just by myself, because we obviously couldn't be around. And I even upped the game by getting a meditation coach.
Love it.
Literally that cleared my energy path so then I could clearly listen. And I know meditation is hard for a lot of people, and it starts off as hard, but as you get, for me, I wanted to take it to the next level. So I had someone that guided me through the process and do visualizations. But from there, I can't begin to tell you how amazing it was, because I started the live streaming. I started podcasting. I was in real estate at the beginning of 2020. I still am now, taking it to the next level, but I can't begin to tell you how much more clear that pathway is for me right now. It's amazing.
You've taken that time to invest in yourself. That's such a massive thing. Yesterday, I was at a physical therapist who's also a very high-level personal trainer. And that for me is I don't need help figuring out what exercises to do. I've been struggling with the discipline of putting my physical fitness to make that a priority. So I bought a 10-pack with him. Now I've got these sessions scheduled every 2 weeks with him, which is great because I'm investing in my physical health, which helps me bring my A game into those other areas that I am more disciplined and have no problems being consistent with. So I think it's great. People need to figure out maybe there is something that you need to do. That you actually know what you need to do, but for whatever reason, you're not getting it done. Right. Invest in someone that's going to make sure you do it, because what you're doing is you're investing in that result. You're ensuring that result rather than having it fall by the wayside where you wake up one day and say, why am I not where I want to be? Yeah,
absolutely. That's actually a great point as far as investing. But, here, I was just going to ask you, in most cases, thinking you do a lot of work for the Napoleon Hill Foundation, right? And so Think and Grow Rich, I've read, and I tell a lot of my audience, I read that at 19. And initially, when you look at the title of, say, Mental Dynamite or Think and Grow Rich, initially, many people will say, this is about financial gain, how to gain money. But what Napoleon Hill says here, or what you remind everyone, is that Andrew Carnegie gave away a lot of his wealth before he had even died. I was going to ask you, I feel like you're a modern day Napoleon Hill and have actually interviewed so many amazing people. Do you find that still the case?
Yeah, the love of philanthropy, the idea being the more resources you have at your disposal, the more value you have the greater your ability to help other people. Yeah. That's why you need to be constantly focused on becoming an person of increasing value. The more value you have, the more value you have to give. A lot of people have been hating on capitalism in the last couple of years, but these things are what's happening to raise the standards of living for people around the world. It's amazing now that on our phones that you and I could pull out, we could have something arrive at our house delivered for free, any product that we want within reason. And it's that money that raises the standards of living and contributes to those philanthropic efforts that can go, whether it's a vaccination in a third world country or all of these different things that need to happen. And people like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and Andrew Carnegie and Napoleon Hill all believed that successful people, financially successful people, had an obligation, a duty to give back to those less fortunate. And it became an enormous part of their lives, particularly later in their careers. So anyone who follows the Think and Grow Rich philosophy properly recognizes that obligation to give back to those less fortunate is such a critical component.
Right. No, it's a universal life force, right, of energy that keeps circulating. When you start understanding the true concept of how energy works, you'll just understand even money is energy.
That's right. It's like Emerson's law of compensation and the law of karma. It's like the best way to get is to give first. So if you can focus on constantly being of service to other people and give without the expectation of anything in return, don't keep score. It is astounding the amount of opportunities that come back to you. There's a huge turning point, I feel like, happens in your life when you realize that you don't need to chase the opportunities. Those opportunities come to you.
Yeah. And the reason I did ask that question, I actually had prepared that initial question though, James, but in my car, as I was waiting before, our scheduled appointment, I was thinking about the question that one of my teammates asked you and said, if you had $10,000, what would you do with it? And you said, you mentioned that we did meet Kevin Call at the same time during Brandon's book signing. Yeah. And you said, I'd give it to someone that needed it or that could give it to other people that need it at the time. So I was wondering if you actually took the philosophy from that, because that's very generous of you. At a time in the pandemic when everyone could use the 10,000, you said you'd give it out to help, a gentleman who actually feeds the people on Skid Row.
Yeah, I would hope that anyone who's focused on helping others focuses like that was a hypothetical on what would you do specifically with money. But I think the best thing that we can do is really help people to help themselves. If we can help people, whether it's acquire some type of skill or develop that self-confidence, that's the way that people during a pandemic can start to get back on their feet. And if you are able to get very, very clear on a problem that you enjoy solving and can create a solution, a good solution to solve that problem and get excited about that transformation for a group of people that you love to work with, then you never need to worry about events like a pandemic from stopping you ever again.
Yeah. I did. From that point forward, I ended up interviewing Kevin Call, and since that time, I've actually done so much work on Skid Row because of that. But
I love it. I want to get one of my goals for this year is to get Kevin in this studio to be able to interview him on his story. Someone who's just such a selfless guy doing so much work to help those less fortunate.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because even in the last event that I was at, there was like this filming crew that like stormed the parking lot, and all of us volunteers were like, who's that? And they had all these cameras, and Kevin's like, they want to interview me. And like, that's what I'm saying. He just gives out of the kindness of his own heart. Yeah. And now everyone wants to share his story or be a part of what he does. And it's just growing massively because it's, like it truly comes from the heart.
And we talk about opportunity. It's being able to create opportunities. It happens from just turning up. Like you and I easily could not have met that night if one of us just said, look, we're not feeling up to it, or we want to stay at home and watch Netflix. Having the opportunity to go out and catch up with Brandon and be at that dinner meant that you and I could connect. It meant that we could connect with Kevin. These are things that have happened in the last 2 months. Can you imagine where all of this stuff goes if you extrapolate this in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years time? And Brandon and I, we talk about this stuff constantly. Him and I have only known each other for, maybe 4 years, but just the opportunities that we have had to help each other and celebrate each other's wins and just do cool things to help each other is incredible.
No, I just wanted to say that to what you were saying. That night that I met you and I went for Brandon's book signing, the podcast of 8 billion was just a concept. And I think I launched it like 2 weeks later. So that's what I was saying, that when you are so clear with your intention, or you want to do something greater, like follow a passion or a purpose, and it serves the greater good, a lot of things just kind of fall into place.
So true. And you're very action oriented because you have that higher purpose. I realized after this goal setting process that I do every single year that there's a need for a lot of people to understand that. So for the first time this year, I've decided to do a goal setting workshop. It's 90 minutes. It's free. It's me, live and interactive, helping whoever wants to join to come and just be a part of this goal-setting workshop. So I put it in this Win the Day group I have on Facebook. Okay. And I thought, look, I'll just put it out on other elements of social media. It ended up getting more than 80 people who have responded. But it wouldn't surprise me if 40 or 50 people actually turned up, because that's just what happens. Like, how committed are you to your success? Like, you really need to take it seriously. I take it more serious than anything, because my success means if I can get very, very clear at this goal setting process, it means my success with my daughter is secure. It means my success with my wife is secure. Mm-hmm. It means my professional stuff is secure. It means that my own experiences, the things that I want to do for myself, is secure. I don't understand why people don't have that same level of significance and priority with their life.
Yeah. So you did launch that 90, is it a 90-minute you said?
90 minutes, yes. It's tomorrow. Tomorrow is the first.
Oh.
I scheduled one time, and then of course, because I'm from Australia, so I had a lot of people in Australia who said, that time doesn't work. And I said, all right, cool. We better organize a second one. And then I had people in London and Ireland saying, hey, that time doesn't work for us. And I was like, this is 90 minutes. Like, surely you can make it work for one of these two other sessions. So I got two scheduled coming up. So we'll see what happens. But I'm someone I openly invite people. If I can help you, just reach out. I'll help you as much as I possibly can. Yeah. And people just don't do that. So I find it interesting, because this to me filters out those people who are really committed versus those who aren't. A big lesson for me last year after interviewing John Assaraf says you need to help the people who want the help, not the people who need the help. If you're focused on helping people who need the help but don't want it, all that's going to happen is that you'll get burnt out. Rather than you lifting them up, they will end up pulling you down without even meaning to.
Yes.
And if you're burnt out, it means you've got an empty cup. There's nothing for you left to give. And it's a lesson that you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So John Assaraf said, it's only work with people who are committed. So the first question before anyone's involved, whether it's a mastermind I'm hosting or any business thing that I'm doing, is, are you interested or are you committed? If you're interested, look, I wish you all the best, but you're just not a great fit. If you're someone who's committed and can commit to X amount of time frame, then we can have big results.
Yes.
You probably see that in your own work with the people you work with too.
Absolutely. For sure. It's so crazy how I see energy in such a different way. Like, because a lot of people, things you need to see like tangible in order for you to understand it. Now I can just feel like, even from a conceptual perspective, right? If you find resistance towards it, it's like, why give your energy there, right?
Yeah.
So when you feel more like what you're saying, if you're willing to coach someone and together you have a focused game plan, the energy gets there even faster.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It was really interesting that night that I met you and then Brandon for the book signing, because I was coming up the stairs and I was with my friend Christine, and I was just like, oddly enough, Christine, I feel like we're supposed to be here tonight.
Yeah. And as far if you're ever at a point where you want something to happen in your life, Brandon and I, our wives tease us all the time. We can't switch it off. We're very motivated. We like helping other people.
Yes.
So yes, it's
that's amazing.
We love, it was a great opportunity to connect with you, and I love all the work that you're doing with the podcast and everything else.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, on top of all your successes being an author, I know you have a successful podcast, Win the Day, and you've had over 200 interviews with people. Now, is there anyone in particular or a message that stands out that has had great influence in your life?
Oh, so many. The 200 people, the hundreds and hundreds of people I've interviewed, not just for the podcast, they're for various projects and things like book work. There's so many different ones. People like Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank, a good lesson from her was that use failure as a massive springboard to success. A big lesson from Janine Shepherd, who was a cross-country skier who was hit by a truck and became a paraplegic. An extraordinary story. I was actually chatting to her 2 hours ago. A big lesson from her was that when you're facing any adversity, it doesn't matter what it is, to say, what is the gift in this? Yes. It's a hard thing to train yourself to do, but if you can identify the gift in all of those different challenges, then your success is assured. Because of the one thing that I do know Is it how you respond to adversity when it inevitably strikes? That's what separates ordinary people from extraordinary achievers.
Right.
There's people like John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneurs on Fire, who a big one for him was making sure you figure out what part of the day do you have the most energy, and making sure that that's when you do your most creative work rather than your busy work. I've got
right? You get
so many lessons. We could go down a list of every single one of those people, and I would be able to list at least 1, 2, or 3 things from those people, because when I'm interviewing them, it's not just for the audience, it's primarily for me. That's why I think every single person should have a podcast, because you have to, people who are a good host, you'll probably read the person's book, which is for study in a specific topic.
Yes.
And then you can listen to their other podcast, which is getting you smarter and more in tune to that, to calibrate to that person's vibe and expertise. And then you can ask questions that you want to know for your own development. And it means there are potential opportunities to work with that person.
Right.
Even if no one else hears the podcast, even if it's just you, to me, that's worth the price of admission alone for having your own podcast.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a valuable avenue.
Absolutely. I agree too. A big part of like before the podcast, or the whole concept of me doing the podcast came from live streaming. And when I of course, like all of us going through everything in 2020, I wanted to spotlight people and causes, and in hopes that I would find something that I could bring my focus into. But as each conversation happened, right, it's a healing process, because you have a responsibility to make sure the message gets out. You're genuinely interested in what they do. And so it truly is amazing. And you start to vibe, and your vibration level starts to increase, because and then you're starting to attract even, high level people. And it's amazing what it does.
Yeah, it's incredible. With my We Are Members group for podcasters, I often talk about seeds planted. And I shared one with you before the show about something that had happened to me this week, which was really amazing and feels really quite surreal. That's as a result of just planting the right seeds and having faith that over time, if you're surrounded by the right network and you've got that clear vision, that amazing things will come to you that you consciously want, but also other things that will come out of left field. There's a quote that I think about often from Steve Jobs. It said, what is it? You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back.
Yes.
So sometimes you have those moments in your life where you just feel like maybe this is going to mean something to you in the future. And when you have those moments, so many big things can happen in the future.
It's so interesting though, because I was like, did I just have deja vu? Because I just heard that. So I don't know if I probably was watching a video of yours and you mentioned it.
I do mention it an awful lot.
Do you?
It's something I think about every single day. It's just It's happened to me too many times for it to be a coincidence. Too many times. Like
right.
it really is. And for this year, the reason I feel so, I don't know, I feel different this year.
Something's different?
Yeah, I really do. Like I feel fantastic. I was chatting to my parents last night and they said, how are you feeling? Everything's crazy in America. And I said, it is, but not with me. Everything's fantastic. 10 out of 10. I'm absolutely full of confidence. And my mum made a comment. My mum's a very positive person, but she said, well, I hope you remember that when something inevitably does happen. And my work is around studying peak performance and resilience. And I have enough lessons embedded in me now that it just doesn't matter what's going to happen. It's just going to be an amazing year. And this will be another building block in being able to impact so many other things in the future.
Yes. Absolutely. And that reminds me, I've had a conversation with a really good friend of mine, and she was very nervous and anxious about like everything that's happening on the news, right? We don't know. Inauguration is already next week, right? And everyone's like, oh, we're going into this type of, socialist, communism. There's so much going on. And everyone's trying to move everything around and make sure that they're prepared. And I said, remember, you cannot give in to the fear. Because I said, once you're in that energetic vibration, that will carry you and you will make decisions out of anxiety and fear, right? And I said, sometimes, you have to understand that in life, you're divinely guided. So whether you take actions or there's a lack of taking actions, you won't know what truly happened until you look back and you connect the dots.
So true. I mean, when it comes to politicians, they're just not a great breed. They need to put a broom through every politician in this country. I really feel like that, yeah. and probably in most countries. I just feel like politicians are just so ego-driven and self-absorbed, and now they're so focused on their election cycle, getting re-elected, that people who are so busy complaining about whoever it is sitting in the White House, how does that even affect your day-to-day? Like it really, It really shouldn't for the most part.
For the most part,
yeah, if you're the clearer you are on your vision, the easier it is for you to be. The number one productivity hack that I never hear anyone talk about is being inspired as the hero of your own story. When you know exactly where you're going to end up, because you've already written the ending of the story, you just need to focus on doing the work that day one requires. Put one foot in front of the other. You don't need to worry about that peripheral noise that is knocking everyone else off course.
Right. That's just like what Matthew McConaughey said, right? And I think his Oscar, he's like, my hero is
me. Yes,
me.
yeah.
5, 10, right?
Absolutely. It's a great speech. I'd forgotten about that. I'd picked it up just as you mentioned it then. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's exactly what it is. If you are inspired as the hero of your own story, it doesn't matter how many hours of sleep you've had last night. It doesn't matter where you're working from or how much money is in your pocket. You wake up and you get after it. You wake up every single day and you make the most of that day. It's everything that I talk about with the Win the Day branding. It's making sure that you are inspired as the hero of your own story.
Right. Well, let me ask you. So what are you excited about for 2021? Do you want to share with the audience any plans or any things in motion right now? What are you excited about?
Yeah, a big one for me actually is a relationship that I have with my daughter. So she is, which is probably a bit of an unexpected answer for you, but she's an amazing ball of energy. She's so full of energy. She's very, very intelligent at the moment. She picks up things very well, and she's got an amazing sense of wanting to learn, which is something that I hope she continues forever. I write a letter to her every single year. I wrote one when she was pregnant. I wrote one. I do it every Christmas. So she's now got 3 letters from me. And the big theme that I've written in those 3 letters is hoping that she continues that love of learning as she gets older, rather than feeling like she needs to subdue that to fit in with other people. So I read a parenting book the other day for the first time ever about how to talk to kids so they will listen. And which has been great, because it made me realize that a lot of the conversations that I were having weren't good. Like, it's our instinct to say, what are we going to... If you're not behaving in a certain way, we're going to remove that from you. But that's going to teach her that if someone's not behaving in a certain way, that she's going to take things from other people. Or if I raise my voice, then she's going to raise her voice. So a lot of this now is about making sure we just have that shift of energy into an activity that best suits the energy that she's in. So that's been a huge one for me. I want to continue her growth. A lot of that is that adaptability. We had her on a plane to Hawaii when she was 6 weeks old. We had her flying to Australia when she was 6 months old. She's been dunked in the ocean countless weekends, which she now loves it, just to have that adaptability. So a big one is making sure she has that adaptability and I am present with her. That's a huge focus. And another one is I launched this business with a good friend of mine in August last year. It's a community to help podcasters make $15,000 in monthly revenue from their show. We've now got more than 30 people in that group. We've had some massive wins already, and it's just to be around the right people. It inspires me. Watching their wins and helping them, it really inspires me more and more each day. And I posted a video for the group just in the car before I walked up here, but it's just amazing. So they're the things that I'm most excited about. And I'll also write a children's book this year for the first time, which will be good.
I was just going to say, here you are, the author to writing successful books for like big business titans, and now you're like, okay, I'm going to go into children's books in terms of, right? And then it's a whole different like ball game down there too.
Yeah,
right?
I figure 60,000 words. That's my usual books. It can't be that hard to write like something with 200 words. So we'll see. It's something like
lots of pictures in color.
That's right. Well, that was inspired because there was I've got 10 nephews and nieces because my brother is about to have his 7th kid, which is which is crazy. He's got a lot of children. My sister's got 4 kids. So when I was reading to my nephew, there's a book called Dude, and every page just said the word dude. And I was like, it's a long book. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be here forever. It was boring me. And I did the thing where you grab like 10 pages and so you can get through the book quicker. And and I said, the end. And he goes, no, James, you were up to here. And he flipped it exactly back to where we were. And I was like, how did he know where we were up to? It's because he was following the illustrations. And that made me realize there are books out there that are engaging but don't have any lessons. So I want to have books that are engaging with really good lessons, just to get them thinking about resilience. I've been doing more and more work with young people, and the one thing I want to let them know is that the world is not going to be this amazing place of sunshine and rainbows. I want to get them ready to basically understand that life is going to absolutely kick them in the ass constantly. It's going to happen. How can we teach that to young kids and teenagers and late in high school? How can we teach those lessons in books to make sure they are established with that resilience foundation?
Right. No, that's going to be great, because this is that was a great way for me to segue into this. Well, like I told you, I interviewed John Lee Dumas a few weeks back, and I told him this. I said, John, if you had the uninterrupted attention of 8 billion people and you had the stage for just a few minutes, what would you say to them? So I'm going to ask you the same question. I didn't want to tell you earlier.
It's a good question. Probably the big one would be that each day, if we do not make the decision to win, we've automatically made the decision to lose. So we wake up, if we don't know what success looks like to us on that day, it's so much easier. It's guaranteed that we're going to fall victim to distraction and procrastination. And if you extrapolate that over 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, eventually that one day has become your life. So each day, if you do not make the decision to win, you have automatically made the decision to lose.
Right. No, that's amazing. That's some great words of wisdom. Like in personal development, I've heard that, right? You either choose to live or you die.
Well, the sort of the inspiration for that was in Think and Grow Rich, and a lot of Napoleon Hill work and Andrew Carnegie work, where they talk about the poverty conscience will automatically overtake any mind that is not preoccupied with being success conscious. And it's so true. If we don't have that success conscious, then we're just going to fall for anything that comes our way. And that manifests in poverty, ill health, and misery. Not in 1 day, not in 1 month, but over time. You're going to wake up one day and you're going to say to yourself, how did I get here? And it's not a good question to ask. Well, it's not a bad question to ask yourself, but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So if we can make sure people early on are asking themselves the right questions, like what work do I need? Like what 3 things do I need to do to win today? Everything else is taken care of. The future is taken care of because you've already focused on winning this day.
Yes. Amazing words to leave this podcast with. Well, congratulations on the success of Andrew Carnegie's Mental Dynamite. And with your podcast, Win the Day, as well as the business that you started last August. It looks like 2021 is starting off to be an amazing year.
Yeah, very excited. Thank you.
Oh, and I'd love to have you back in the future again, maybe when you write your children's book.
Absolutely. We'll have a whole different conversation, and hopefully I would have read a number of other parenting books then too. So I'll be a parenting guru. Unlike right now where I have a daughter who grabs mashed potato and anything else that she can find and launches it against the wall.
Right, exactly. You're going to have more than dude.
That's right. Yes, we'll have maybe not much more. We'll see. Maybe I can do an Australian version called mate instead of dude.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you again with deep gratitude. Thank you again for sitting with me here in the studio. So, like I said, if you're always welcome to come back on 8 Billion if you'd like to share your next launch of your book.
I would love to. Well, thank you so much for all that you do to make the world a better place and for having an awesome podcast.
Oh, thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Well, thank you everyone for tuning into this 8 Billion podcast episode with James Whittaker. If you're interested in watching any of my previous interviews, please go to www.8billionproject.com. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If it's moved you in any way, please review and share your thoughts, or text me your thoughts at 949-247-2800.